why we are going to get started.
Okay.
Hey guys, it's Lavetta.
And it's Miriam.
And this is the Notorious Women Podcast, a comedy podcast about some of history's most notorious women.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. I am so excited. This is our final episode of season 3.
I
right?
mean, yes, it is. I can't believe we're finishing a third season. I feel like we just started, kind of. And at the same time, I feel like we've been doing this forever. And
what are you trying to say?
that we're old. I feel
I'm like
we're
the ball
old.
and chain.
Actually, you know what's funny, Lavetta, is that you and my husband have so much in common, and it's weird. Okay?
We're like the same person.
You kind of are the same person. Yeah.
That means Sal is cool. That's why I love Sal, 'cause Sal is cool.
I like to think that I balance you out with your like focus and ability to organize things. You know, my lack
AKA
of focus.
type A personality.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You and Sal are both like, wash your hands immediately, and then we can talk words. Like, you guys are the same person.
That's so funny. No, I am a bit high strung. Like,
yes.
But I mean, we're both Libras, but it's so interesting. I think you may have that part of the Libra like trait where you're like, yeah, let's feel, let's go with the flow, right?
Let me tell you,
and we're also empathetic.
Yeah, very empathetic.
But I must have a Virgo rising because I can be very like
Lavetta,
task mastery.
When we go on hikes, pack snacks, right? Snacks. He packs every time 4 plates so that in the middle of rocks, we can eat a snack over a plate. What? And all you're thinking is, of course he packed plates. What are you going to do? Just eat? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
What is Sal's sign?
So he's a Leo. He's very Leo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know anything else. I don't know anything else about me. I just know Libra. I know I have things rising and falling and stuff, but...
Yeah, sometimes I think I have Leo rising, but
yeah,
Leos are very helpful. They're very helpful.
Yes.
They tend to be.
Oh, and both of you are like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm a little bit more high strung than Leos tend to be. So that's why I think it's Virgo. But anyway, I mean, that's a good match, Leo and Libra. But apparently Aquarius... Sagittarius and Gemini is like a Libra's like really great match.
No. I dated a Sagittarius. No, thank you. No.
No, I've dated many Sagittarius, and I have to say that they are
stupid. Sorry, no disrespect. I'm just kidding. My one ex-boyfriend was stupid. No. Sorry, not every Sagittarius. Please don't come at me. Okay, thank you.
Actually, most of the ones I've ever met are actually highly intelligent, but no, they are not diplomatic. They're not diplomatic,
no.
And that is the thing that, because Libras are very diplomatic, like what you just said earlier, like. Lavetta comes prepared. You mean type A? Like a Sagittarius would be like, she's anal.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. No, he was too stupid to be anything. It's fine.
Too stupid.
I really am over him.
I have to say though.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. That is bad though this is why I never judge a woman dating past, because I've dated some doozies and I'm like, what were you smoking, girl?
Right. You can't judge the woman based on her ex-boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever. Sometimes, man.
Or exes. Like, sometimes you're just like, that's nothing to do, but
maybe
anyway,
love isn't blind. Love is just stupid. I don't know. You could rephrase it. Make t-shirts.
Now that is a dating show that I would watch. Love is stupid.
I would watch it all day.
Oh my God. I guess we should get started on our final episode of season 3. So I believe I am first this week, and I have a good one. I cannot wait to get into this.
All right, I'm excited.
So my notorious woman for this week is Linda Taylor.
Linda
Have you
Taylor.
ever heard of Linda Taylor?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because it's a very common name, but let's get into it. Okay, so
Okay.
my sources today, some of my sources today come from a PBS documentary and on the state of Black America, Black America Now post MLK, also from an interview with PBS NewsHour, a YouTube documentary from The Damage Report, or actually a YouTube channel called The Damage Report.
Okay.
Well, they do sort of revisionist history kind of thing. It's really interesting with very attractive women. It's
yes.
like anchors. And a New Republic article by Bryce Covert from 2019, and among many other sources, but those are my main sources. So now, Linda Taylor. So a little backstory. In 1974, Linda Taylor was identified by the Chicago Tribune as a person who had committed welfare fraud to end all welfare frauds.
Wow.
They claimed in this article that she was receiving public assistance, a program aimed at helping poor people while wearing furs and driving fancy cars, including a Cadillac.
Okay.
After this expose on Linda Taylor, she was quickly given the moniker of welfare queen.
Oh my God. So all I have in my head is Glow. Like all I have in my head right now.
I know. Yeah.
And now I want to go watch it again. Okay. Let's hear what really happened. Okay.
Now, what would become of this? So the term welfare queen has become, especially after this expose and this time in the 70s, it became a particular kind of slur directed primarily at Black women, but Black people in general. And it was a kind of racial dog whistle and racist response to the slogan of Black Queen or African Queen that became popular, a popular term to describe Black women, and Black women describe themselves as during the Black Power movement of the 60s and the 70s. So in the 60s and the 70s, it'd be like Black Power, my beautiful Black Queen, my beautiful African Queen. So the term welfare queen in the 70s became sort of it was downright a dog whistle as a response to that. So now a little bit about
feels
Linda
right
Taylor.
To me. That sounds correct.
Yeah. So she is basically the physical embodiment of that term, that kind of thinking that was solidified and can be it can be directly connected to this article from the Chicago Tribune in 1974.
Interesting.
Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
Media has
and
power.
The media has power. And a lot of people, it became very popular in the 80s especially, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But a little bit about Linda Taylor herself. Now, Linda Taylor was born Martha Louise White, probably in January of 1926 in Gold Dust, Tennessee.
Okay.
Now, although her birth certificate there's no birth certificate that was issued, but in his book, which is another source, a major source, Josh Levine's book called The Queen, he makes her estimate just based on his research that she was born around in basically January of 1926, but we can't find a birth certificate.
Oof. Well,
now, not much is known of her father, but based on the stories from family members, he was either Black or white, a light-skinned Black guy or a white guy.
Okay.
Or in some census reports, even though Linda herself was marked as white. Now, one reason for the confusion is that Linda's mother, Lydia Mooney White, was white.
Okay.
And at the time of her birth in 1926, she could have been convicted of felony under the Alabama law against interracial relationships, which is where they think that she had a relationship with a Black man and then went back home to Tennessee.
And that's why she was.
Okay.
Yep. You got to do what you got to do.
Now, whatever her race was, because Linda was a very light-skinned woman. To me and to most Black people, when you see her, I'm like, oh, she's just a light-skinned Black woman. But to many white people who, despite America's deeply rooted racial divide, identifying an actual Black person is very difficult for white people for some reason. Even back then.
Listen, people don't want white people don't want you to be black. Like that's why that their eyes are just like, no, I can see how you're white. Like people do that to me being Jewish. They're like, are you Irish? I feel like you're Irish.
Yeah.
No, I don't look Irish, but okay.
It's like Jennifer Beals and Mariah Carey. People are like, they look white to me. I'm like, where do they look white? They do not look white.
No, it's
they just look like a light skin. Anyway.
Yeah, like white supremacy eyes. I should hashtag white supremacy eyes. Patent pending.
You gotta put that.
Okay.
Well, it's just so weird because they're so focused on keeping black people in their place, and they still have a hard time actually identifying a black person in this country. Because I can't speak in other places.
I do think they're just weird, uncomfortable around black people. So if they can make you not black somehow, or they're just not bright. Yeah. You know what? Also an option. Not very bright.
Yeah, there's that, and it's, I think it's because they never take the time to actually learn about black people. So even though they've been living with us for hundreds of years in this country, they don't really know us.
Hey, Lavetta.
So now,
Lavetta, I think nail on head. I think the nail on the head. I think you just hit the nail on the head. Okay. Yeah. For more philosophy.
It's just like,
yeah,
again,
right.
it's like occasionally there'll be like a biracial person. And we also know that black people in this country, again, I can only speak about in this country, come in all shades.
Yeah.
And we also have New Orleans. Like we have that whole kind of like the quadroon balls and the, it's like that, what's that? He's really sexy. What's the guy? Theo James. Theo James just looked black to me. People like he's white. I'm like, he don't look white. He looked like an octoroon. That's what that boy looked like. Okay, to me. He don't look white. He looks so black to me, and they're like, he's Greek. I'm like, no, he can't be black. He just just look like one of his grandparents is. He looks like one of his grandparents is black. That's all I'm saying. But he's fine as hell too. So
I don't know who that is, but now I want to know. Okay.
The guy, did you watch the Divergent series? And also he's British, and he was also in the last season of The White Lotus when they were in Italy.
Oh, I did watch that.
Yes, the sexy one, the one who's problematic that was married to the pretty blonde lady.
Oh, yeah, he is not unattractive. Yeah.
No, he's not unattractive. He's very sexy. But anyway, but when I see him, I'm like, that's obviously a black guy. Yeah. And white people are like, no, I don't see it. I'm like, it's obviously, Anyway, but because of this, whatever. So I just think Linda was, when you see her again, she just looks like a light-skinned black woman. Right. But because she was growing up in, the 40s, in the 50s, she often used this racial ambiguousness to her advantage, and she would present herself as different various racial and ethnic identities, including Black, Asian, Hispanic, and Jewish.
Oh, wow. I love it. Run the gamut. It's all a construct.
Run the gamut.
Do you. I don't know.
I think it's just one of those things. They're like, you don't look quite white. She's like, I'm Jewish. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sure.
So,
okay, girl.
Now, not much is known of her childhood, except that she did grow up with a poor family who were sharecroppers. So these were white people. Again, her mother went back to her people. And she was often made to feel like an outsider in her own home because of her race. She was never allowed to go inside her uncle's home.
Ugh.
And she was often kept out of family functions.
That bastards.
Now, why did you take this little baby back to these racist ass?
That's what I'm saying.
Crackers. I'm going to say it. I'm from Florida. Like, no. But I guess a white woman at that time didn't have a lot of options.
I don't know. I don't know. That just...
And
you either
it sounds like they were poor also.
Love the shit out of my children for who they are, or I never need to see you again. But like, I have a privilege, and I know that. But oof.
And also the fact that she wasn't allowed in her uncle's home, because that was something they used to be like, well, black people aren't allowed inside.
But then like, as a parent, I would be like, we're not going to your uncle's home because he's not good enough for us. You know what I'm saying? Like there's...
Yeah. Like who knows what the dynamics,
the
family dynamics were. But she was also expelled from an all-white school at the age of 6 and didn't make it past the 2nd grade. Because of this, and perhaps it led to her rebelliousness that came from this. I mean, this is a very fundamental wound, right?
Yeah.
Rejected by your family.
Oh my God.
And you don't know your father's side of the family, So this is your only family. Now, to make matters even worse and more difficult, at age 14, she gave birth to her first child in around 1940.
Oh, God.
She would go on to have 5 children total. So
Wow.
go on to give birth at least to 4 more children.
Okay.
Now, it was around this time that Linda decided to use her, I don't know, multi-ethnic appearance,
Okay.
ambiguous racial appearance, to become a very deft scammer. She was a scammer.
I don't blame her.
By leaving home and moving first to a mostly black neighborhood in Oakland, California,
Okay.
she started to accumulate a criminal record, allegedly. A lot of this is allegedly.
Okay.
So, and again, when she moved to the black neighborhood, black people probably like, well, yeah, she's just a light-skinned black lady. I just don't understand. But she go on the other side of town, and she could, they wouldn't know, be none the wiser. So, now to be fair, she did appear to make attempts at formal employment.
Okay.
But she was also at a disadvantage.
Right.
Racism had limited her education.
Yeah.
And racism had also limited her employment opportunities.
Wait, are you telling me
even as
that racism is bad? Is that?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, it is.
interesting.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, yes, it's bad.
Who were
And
unsure until now.
I know, even though she could use her racial fluidity, but because she grew up in the South,
but
she couldn't get her education, and because she
Exactly.
doesn't have education, she can't get a better job.
Can't pull up bootstraps if they don't give you boots.
Exactly. So I figured Linda's like, listen here, bitches. Sign me all of that. Forget all of that. I'm going to get mine. Okay. By any means necessary, bitches. So allegedly, one of the ways that she started to get hers was by kidnapping babies. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Theft. All kinds of things. I'll get into them. So one baby in particular that has been tied to Linda was a baby by the name of Paul Franzak from Chicago.
Okay.
Apparently, it is reported that she kidnapped the little baby from a Chicago hospital in 1964.
Whoa.
She posed as a nurse, took him from the hospital, and kept him for over a year. The baby was thankfully found about 800 miles later, abandoned in a New Jersey shopping center. So the family's like, oh my God, the baby's alive. This is some changeling kind of bullshit, right?
Yeah.
The baby's back alive. And so at least that's what they thought. But Paul Franzak, who he thought he was Paul, took a DNA test almost 50 years later.
Oh, shit.
In around 2014.
Okay.
He took a DNA test and realized that he was not the Franzak's child.
Oh my
he was
God.
not Paul. So no one knows what happened to this baby. I'm sure there's been some investigations, but Linda's son, a man by the name of Johnny Habbo, in 2014 was interviewed, and he confirmed that yes, Linda stole the baby.
What did
he says he remembers
do with the baby?
That's a whole nother podcast episode. This woman has so many crimes that are tied to her that we're only scratching the surface.
Okay.
But for some reason, I don't know if she because she had children of her own. I suspect she was kidnapping white babies and probably trying to sell them. Because this is also a time where, abortion, but she's actually going in and taking babies out of the hospital. And her son, Johnny, in 2014, recalled in an interview that he remembers his mom having a room full of wigs and costumes, including a nurse's uniform.
No shit. Holy crap.
Yep. So these people think they got their baby back, and he thinks he's back home. And it's like, where did she get the other baby?
Well, yeah, I don't understand.
Did she just switch babies? Did she sell the baby to the nearest person? I think it's baby selling. That's the only reason a woman like this would be taking babies. Because she had her own children. So it's not like one of those, oh, I can't have children. I just want a baby. It's, and I'll get into a little bit more. So let's dive in deep here.
Okay.
So sit back. So now, according to Josh Levine, again, the author of The Queen, in addition to kidnapping, she was also suspected of theft, fraud, and murder.
What?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yes. Now, as far as theft and fraud, she was involved in a failed attempt to extort a gambling mogul by threatening to go public with the relations by the claims of a non-existent relationship.
Oh.
She also tried to extort through fraud, she claimed to be the long-lost daughter of a wealthy man who had died to claim her inheritance. But this failed because her white family members, including her mother, came forth. Because obviously there's all this money at stake. So his family, the wealthy man who had died, they're not going to let this go without a fight.
Right,
so they took her to court.
Okay.
So because of that, her family members were forced to come forward and say, no, that she is not who she's claiming to be. She's our daughter, including her mother. But even at that point, her mother she felt rejected by her mother.
Yeah, because her mother kind of rejected her. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. So that fell apart. Now, in 1974, even after this article from the Chicago Tribune, she was, and so after the article, around the time of the article, she was indicted on welfare fraud. But while out on bail, she was allegedly tied to the suspicious murder of a woman named Patricia Parks, who had died under suspicious circumstances. And they knew that Linda had befriended this woman. Okay. So they suspected her of that. Also, one of her husbands, a man by the name of Sherman Ray, was shot by one of his cronies. And his family accused her of being involved because she had taken 2 life insurance policies out on him shortly before his death.
2, huh?
Naming her the sole beneficiary.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
She ingratiated herself. Yeah. She ingratiated herself also, according to Josh Levine's book, to a woman named Mildred Markham, whom she began to mistreat and hold against her will.
What? That's kidnapping.
Potentially probably trying to kill her.
Oh, God.
And collect life insurance on her. Yep. So Linda is shady as fuck.
Yeah,
Linda is, not only is she a scammer, but she's like, it sounds like she's a violent scammer, allegedly. So you would think that with all these possible murders and deaths and shady shit around her.
This is not okay. Okay. Not okay.
This would be enough, right, to like suspect her, like to go after her. But no. Instead, because America bitches, they want to focus on welfare fraud, right?
Wow. So that was the big problem here?
Yeah.
That's the welfare fraud?
That was a big problem.
Not the murder?
So let's go back to 1974.
Murder?
Alleged murder. So, because by the time 1974, remember, she goes to Los Angeles in 1940. So she had 34 years to be scheming and scamming. Yeah.
Stealing people.
And murdering people.
Stealing them and murdering them.
Stealing babies.
Yeah.
Stealing babies.
No, but you took $1 out of my taxes. Let's focus on that. Okay.
Well, let's get into that. That's really interesting. So when she was arrested, so this is how it starts. In August of 1974, she filed a police report claiming that she had been robbed of $14,000, equivalent of about $83,000 in 2020. So about $90,000 in today's cash, of cash, jewelry, and furs. So she files this report.
Okay.
Right? This is one of her scams. Chicago detective Jack Sherwin and Jerry Cush took the report and they recognized her from a similar previous report that she had filed.
Okay.
So they were like, something's not right here. So they became suspicious and started to look closely at her because they're like, is this one of these people who are just falsely reporting? Because a lot of times you can once you report something, you can get insurance payouts from it, right? With the police report, right? So they started looking deeper into her and they found they were like, something's not right.
Yeah.
And they realized that she had multiple different names in different apartments under those different names. They discovered that, and finally they discovered that she was actually wanted on welfare fraud in Chicago. So they're in Illinois. So they started looking closely at her.
Okay.
So they started going deeper and deeper, and they realized, this woman's got stuff all over all over the country probably, but they were able to pin down the Michigan thing. So she was arrested at the end of August.
She's Michigan or Chicago or California or all of it? She just keeps
all of it.
Okay.
So in the 40s, she moved to Los Angeles at first. And then she's been moving around. So the article, the Chicago Tribune, was in Chicago because that came out after this investigation.
Right.
But the investigation was sparked because she filed a false police report, suspected. She was suspected of that.
Right.
So once they started looking closely at her, then they found the charges in Michigan. Does that make sense?
I feel like you can commit this kind of fraud like once. You know what I'm saying? And then
I think
flags.
back then, because they weren't computerized, states weren't talking to each other as much as they are now.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I think it was a lot more. What do they call it? Pre-digital. Analog. It was a lot more analog back then. And obviously, the scam has been working. But the only reason it didn't work is because they thought, there's something familiar about her. And then they started looking closer.
Yeah.
Because she's counting on the incompetence of most police officers also.
Fair enough, yeah.
And she is a good-looking woman. She's not just she's an attractive woman. So, she's probably turning on the charm. And, even at this point, let's say she was born in 26, she's 48 at this point. So she's still an attractive woman, right? So, but for some reason they look closer at her. Maybe something maybe they were actually good detectives. And they were like, I don't know.
That's the last possibility, if you notice that. That was mostly no, we are not assuming that at all, but maybe, I don't know.
But originally, they arrested her on the Michigan charge because she was wanted in Michigan, but she fled. So they originally arrested her at the end of August in 1974. Okay. Possibly intending to send her back to Michigan. Okay. But they released her on bond because they're thinking this is low level. They don't know about the murders, alleged murders and kidnapping. Mm-hmm. They just think, this, and they could even be thinking at this point, this is a high class woman, so this is a white collar crime kind of thing, right? And then they're like, the welfare thing, but it seems like it's not a serious thing. So they release her on bond. Okay. She flees the state. Okay. And becomes a fugitive until October of 74, where she's caught in Tucson, Arizona. So
Tucson,
Linda's like, I'm out.
Well, she went south. Yeah. She went southwest. Yeah. Okay.
So now back in Illinois, prosecutors opened a 31-count indictment against her for fraud, perjury, bigamy, alleging that she had received welfare and Social Security checks under multiple names. Okay. Now, her attorney, R. Eugene Pitcham, managed to delay the trial until March of 1977, by which time the charges had been considerably reduced, including welfare and assistance fraud totaling, because originally in this article it reported that she had, in the Chicago Tribune that we started at the beginning of the story, that she had taken about $100,000. Which is about $900,000 in today's money. But when she went to trial in March of 1977, that had been reduced considerably to $8,000. So not $100,000, $8,000.
That's a little less stressful.
But by that time, the press had gotten a hold of it. Okay. So that is why they then release that expose on her about welfare fraud. Okay. She became the poster woman for welfare fraud.
Got it.
Again, Lord. Ignoring all the murders, the baby kidnapping, the shady ass shit.
Do you like
that Linda was up to?
How racism actually like helped her get away with the really bad shit? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think that's really interesting that because of racism and this need to that she was like, also I committed murder, but no one knows about it.
We don't want to hear about the murders. Tell us about the welfare checks.
Right.
What?
Okay.
So now
Jesus.
during the trial, Linda seemed unrepentant, not only unrepentant, but a bit boastful.
Oh.
She's famously caught on a news camera going into court because again, this expose comes out in 74. So by the time the trial comes in 77, everybody wants to know.
Yeah, right.
Like this welfare queen.
Drama.
A trial, right? Drama, right? So it's probably selling newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's famously going into court one day and she says, quote, well, compared to some of you white people, I think I done pretty good to be black, end quote.
I want to clap my hands right now. That's amazing. I mean, listen, don't murder, don't steal children, obviously, but like I really like that quote.
Yeah. And also, it's so funny because when you hear her talk, I'm like, that's obviously just a black Southern woman who's very light skinned. Again, it's so funny.
Yeah.
But so she didn't really do herself any favors. Also, they started posting pictures of her in fur coats. And when you put in her name, that's what comes up. There's a very famous picture of her, a fur coat and a fly hat, looking basically like Lady Superfly and driving Cadillacs.
Yeah. Okay. So she shouldn't have stolen.
No. So the trial lasted about 3 weeks. And after the jury deliberated for about 7 hours, she was found guilty on March 17th, 1977.
Okay.
She was eventually sentenced to 2 to 6 years on the welfare fraud and a year on the perjury charges, and to be served consecutively.
Okay.
She was sentenced. She was sentenced on February 16th. 1978. I'm sorry. So February 16th, 1978, she began serving time at Dwight Correctional Center.
Okay.
Now, again, Linda, because she know all the dirt she done. She know all the dirt she done. Now, one of the reasons, she's convicted. She's basically convicted to 2 to 6 years. And then, so maybe 7 years total.
At the most, yeah.
At the most, right? Now, again, that article came out in 1974. In 1976, again, 2 years after the Chicago Tribune story ran, Ronald Reagan began campaigning for the presidency, and he used this story and embellished it.
Yeah, of course he did.
To gain support.
Yeah.
So he claimed in a campaign speech, it's a very famous one. It comes up often if you look up Linda Taylor, that she was earning about $150,000 a year. That's about $1 million by today's standards, by cheating Social Security. According to him, she used 80 names, 30 addresses, 15 telephone numbers to collect food stamps, Social Security, veterans benefits from 4 non-existent deceased husbands, and welfare.
I mean,
okay. This is what he claimed. Again, she was eventually, and again, this is a year before her trial, but even when they brought charges against her, they charged her with totaling $8,000.
Yeah, that's real
He's
different.
He's claiming $150,000.
Lavetta,
Okay.
you know, this reminds me of, like, there's like facts, and then there's like alternative facts. It sounds to me like he was walking around spouting alternative facts. I mean,
so it's so interesting. The playbook that we are witnessing now, and we've been witnessing a lot from the Republican Party, can be traced right back to this.
Well,
to this time.
I mean, if you talk to my husband, he's pretty sure that the downfall starts with Reagan. Like, it's just, it's like really hard when you read history and you kind of delve into what America was starting to do in the 70s, what we were kind of creating, what was getting better. And it's like, it's really like heartbreaking to see the 80s, to see what happened.
Now, keep in mind, the Civil Rights Act passed and Voting Rights Act, all of that passed in 64. So by 76, we're only 12 years into some kind of change. And racist white people are still mad.
They're still mad. And we still haven't, right? Like, we haven't changed the political landscape. The idea for the Voting Rights Act is to change the political landscape, and we are still not able to do it. But this is right after. So,
and also, this is also the origins of the racial dog whistle. with Reagan because he was an actor, right?
Oh,
so
God,
this is
yeah.
where he's starting this kind of thing. So
Fucking A.
Now I'm going to get into his thing. Now, by doing this, he was holding her up as the typical public assistance recipient and an example of liberal policies to help the poor having gone too far.
Yeah.
Now, in the PBS documentary, Black America Since MLK and Still I Rise, Brittany Cooper, professor of Africana Studies, says that, quote, the welfare queen image is simply a manufacturer of Ronald Reagan and the Republican Party using one story from Chicago in the 1970s of one woman who scammed something from the system, and it's not entirely clear all that she scammed, end quote. It was an outright lie, basically.
It was a lie.
It was designed to attack. It was designed to attack the aid from the federal government that had began in the 1930s during the Depression to help the poor, the majority of whom were white at the inception of these public assistance policies. And they also helped many poor of all races. But with Reagan and the Republican Party in the 1980s, they began to craft this false narrative that this aid was only helping Black people, even though it was still helping white people.
Yeah.
Now, in the same PBS documentary, historian Jelani Cobb says that this tactic brought about this fundamental shift in how we began to talk about poverty in the U.S.
Interesting.
Moving from what was deemed in the 1930s as a deserving poor to the undeserving poor, aka Black and brown people, despite the fact that the majority of people still receiving public assistance were white.
Yeah.
Now, by doing this, changing this narrative, it also takes away the focus away from, quote, what Jelani Cobb says, quote, how did we end with this kind of poverty in the first place by asking that question, end quote. Levine also notes in his book, The Queen, in 1974, 12% of the country lived in poverty, surviving on as little as $5,000 a year for a family of four. Such a family could expect just about $3,456 a year to supplement this meager income, an amount that went without an update for years while inflation soared in the 70s, because inflation was terrible in the 70s. Now, in the article, in Bryce Covert's article for the New Republic, he says, quote, while Reagan never used Taylor, meaning Linda Taylor's name, nor even directly racialized her, he didn't need to. The woman from Chicago, quote, who wore furs and drove a Cadillac while receiving government checks was clearly Black to his white supporters. And while the AFDC's caseload never became majority Black, 60% of the families receiving this were non-Black. The face of poverty in popular media had become Black, allowing Linda Taylor to represent a group toward which white Americans were growing resentful. Without articulating explicit racial animus, Reagan conveyed a story that spoke to people's racist ideas about the public benefits and lazy Black people, end quote. Yeah. And this also codified the majority of the white voting bloc for the Republican Party based along racial grievances.
You know,
this is where
that's where it started, and I fully believe that.
Yeah. Now, Levine, in an interview with the PBS NewsHour, states that, quote, welfare has been effective talking point for a whole generation of politicians, end quote, including this idea of the undeserving poor and how the shift in how we talk about poverty in America even started to affect the Democrats and Black people, I will say. And he cites Bill Clinton's stance during his presidency in the 1990s, which was backed by a lot of Black people. Because of the power of this image, Democrats, as well as many, like I said, many Black people fell under the spell. And with the passage of the Welfare Reform Act in 1996, welfare went from being an income-based entitlement to being a temporary assistance program that many, even if you're below the poverty line, still are not able to qualify.
Yes.
So before that act, you could just get it because your income has been, so low for so long. But then it became just a temporary thing with an ending date.
At that, they've done so many studies where they like a social experiment where they go to poor areas and they give people like $500 a month or $1,000 a month, right? You cannot feed a family on $1,000 a month, even in the poorest neighborhood, because you can't because you're paying rent and food and books and clothes, and you cannot. It just was a supplement.
And they've done studies where they give an additional $1,000 a month to poor families, and it's miraculous what they're able to do with that money.
And it's miraculous how much better everything is
run. The children can get their teeth cleaned, teeth looked at. A single mother can afford to get a car.
To work.
To go to work, to take the kids to school, to go out of a food desert and to go to a proper grocery store to buy fresh fruits and vegetables that might actually be cheaper than what's in her neighborhood.
Exactly.
But this image and this demonization of people on public assistance by racializing it made it so effective that even the other side had to be like, oh, well, maybe we need to reform it. No. We need to look at poverty.
Sick.
Why is poverty in one of the richest countries in the world, right? Or the richest country in the world? Why do you still have a poverty problem? Now, again, Linda Taylor ain't no Girl Scout because she allegedly murdered and killed people.
Let's not forget.
Makes her, I know, let's not forget. But what makes her notorious and have this notorious legacy is even because basically she's a scammer. What makes it notorious is how the people who mean harm to poor people lobbed onto her and were able to take someone who was scamming about $8,000. Again, that's nothing.
It's not much.
Inflate it to 100,000 or 150,000 in Reagan's case.
Yeah.
And specifically use it as a tool, a political tool to demonize Black women specifically and Black people in general as an excuse to cut off much needed aid and assistance for the majority of the working poor who are mostly white. So this is where white supremacy harms white people.
Yeah. Look within.
And this is where when they're, this is what we mean about you're voting against your interest.
Yeah.
Why are you voting against people who want to cut welfare? Because it's like, well, if we make you think that only Black people are getting welfare, then when we cut it and we cut yours, then you're like, well, at least the Black people aren't getting it. But it's like, you're not getting it either.
Yeah, racism is very powerful because they kept voting for it, right? These things keep going on ballots
today.
They keep voting for it today. I just saw an article where they're pulling back SNAP benefits. Fuck you. Yep. These people are trying to feed children. Like the fact that they demonize hardworking these are the hardest working people in the world.
Yeah, I saw a lady on Twitter say, she was like, because we were like, well, the reason why you're poor is because you don't know how to budget. And she was like, actually, poor people got budgeting down to a science because they have to.
Yeah.
What are you kidding? And it's like, what are you talking about? But I just find it so amazing that you can go back and find like basically patient zero for this kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Even though there's other people probably creating fraud, majority of people on aid then and now are white. But because they globbed onto this image of Linda Taylor, who, just to wrap up her story, again, she went to jail in the 1970s, but when she got out, she moved to Florida. Oh. And in the 90s, she was hit with federal charges for another crime, and she was eventually released and taken back home to her family in Ohio to live out the rest of her life. Now, not much is known of her activities after that, but we do know that she died of a heart attack in around 2002 at Ingalls Memorial Hospital outside of Chicago. Now, reports say that she was allegedly living under an alias.
Okay.
Her remains were cremated. Now, she could have been living under an alias because of the notorious legacy following her, or maybe she was up to another scam. Who knows? But I just hate that this scammer is used to demonize and harm millions of Americans for generation after generation after generation, because PR is so potent. It's just so potent that this one woman, this one scammer is used to demonize Black people, which people are already, we've talked off mic. People, if you're already inclined to believe something, all you need is like not even a poke to believe it and be like, haha, I knew it. And but then to use it to harm, I'm from the South. The majority of the white people I know are actually poor.
Yeah.
It's not the majority, the people that you think, and I think sometimes when white supremacy will have you think that the majority of white people are actually on 90210 or like the people on 90210 or the people we see in the movies. And that's not the case in America.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not.
But they've convinced these people to vote against their own interest in an attempt to hurt Black people. But because we don't live on an island, we live with each other. When you cut off aid for them, you're also cutting off aid for yourself. And then they get to blame Black people for that as well. So
I mean, Black people have been the scapegoats in this country time and time again. Like, it's even and fucking Reagan, man, he's such a
fucking Reagan
motherfucker. I'll say it.
He was... Allegedly. He basically was like, no.
I fucking hate him.
He basically, he just had the charisma because he was an actor. But remember, Reagan had, he and Hedda Hopper, one of our previous Notorious women, they were part of the group in Hollywood that were pushing for the blacklist.
Yes. Like,
I don't
even... And it's funny because I actually remember hearing like little bits about like the blacklist. Like, how can you think that that's wrong and vote for Reagan? Like, my adult self is asking this question to the adults around me at the time, because you can't have it both ways. He's either bad or good in this, like...
Well, these people, and they come from that mindset that there's criminals, there's enemies everywhere, but you're the enemy, you're the criminal, like you're the heartless one. Like I said, when he did that speech, we were only 12 years away from the Civil Rights Act being passed. So it's like, oh, you Negroes are getting too much after 12 years, and they were still integrating schools. What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
I mean, they're still integrating schools, actually.
They're still integrating schools today.
But like, they're just going to be perpetually pissed off about the Civil Rights Act. They're not going to feel better about it, and just let's just call them out on it. I don't know.
These people just I've been saying it from the beginning. They'll go back to 1950. They would love to go back to 1950, but if they could go back to 1850, they love that even more.
Yeah.
They would love 1850. Oh, 1850 was the good old days where you could be on a plantation and you could have a wedding. You can have a wedding, I do declare,
You know what, Lavetta?
Where Black people knew their place.
They're still having weddings on plantations, but that's for maybe another day.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. But that is Linda Taylor, my Notorious woman for this episode. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. That was amazing. You just put my whole childhood in perspective, honestly, in a way that I've not seen. Because I remember the conversations that I heard adults around me having. Well, we really shouldn't give out, free money. You should pull up boots, like that. I don't mean my parents necessarily, but just like the zeitgeist of the time. I remember that. I remember like the nightly
But they weren't
news.
saying that in the 50s. They were not saying that in the 50s because that was happening since the Depression. And I mean, Roosevelt was right. You need to give people money so they can buy food. You need to, get infrastructure going so you can make jobs and, industries around that grows up and, the money can start flowing. But after the civil rights legislation, if you mean Black people are getting this too, and then he found this one scammer.
He's such an asshole.
Scammer who was raised with her white family who I bet you they were getting welfare.
Oh, yeah, because they were very poor. We already talked about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, it was interesting.
Yo, like that is, it's like crazy, but it's not because it makes sense, but it's also fucking crazy. That was not prolific.
And while a child kidnapping and murder goes unsolved.
Nothing. No idea. Nope.
Yeah.
They did not find the child, actually. Like,
No.
but,
It's like,
like I am
anyway.
the prize,
Well,
y'all.
who's your notorious woman?
Okay. I'm like still processing. Okay, so my
I know,
notorious
right?
woman-
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Okay,
a lot.
I don't want to mess her name up. So, a friend of mine sent this to me. Narges, I think Narges, Narges, Mohammadi. Okay. This woman right here. Listen, she is the most brave. I'm just saying it. She's the most brave woman. We must discuss her. Okay. It's a little, there's a lot of jail time involved and it's unfair. So fair warning.
Okay.
I'm going to upfront fair warning.
Okay. I like this. Linda deserved to be in jail
Right.
for murder and kidnapping, but this woman is
Yeah.
proud to the people.
Proud to the people.
Gotcha.
Okay. So she was born in 1972, April 21st, in Zanjan, Iran, a region in Iran. I am so sorry. I will do the best I can. To an Iranian Azerbaijani family, which is they grow up speaking both Iranian and Azerbaijani, which is a language I just learned.
I did not know that.
I didn't either. So it's again, when you go to Iran, certain places it's hard to get a lot of information. So I don't know much about her childhood. Her parents were very encouraging of her to learn and grow and study. I got that. Good parents. She went to Kazvin International University. She received a degree in physics and became a professional engineer. So another woman that is much smarter than both you and I. No offense.
No, none taken.
I love you, but we did not receive a degree in physics and become engineers. Right.
No.
And I mean, in your case, you totally could have. But in my case, it was not in any of my cards. So let's just be honest about that. So while she was at university, she started writing articles supporting women's rights in the student newspaper. And she was arrested at 2 meetings of the political student group. Okay, the name in English of the student group is Enlightened Student Group. And the name in Iranian is something else. And I really don't want to butcher an entire language and offend an entire people. But it looks very beautiful if you look at it. So she was also active in mountain climbing. And she joined a group for it, but then was later banned because of her political activities. So in 1999, we're going to jump. She married fellow pro-reform journalist Taghi Rahmani, and he was soon arrested after they got married for the first time. So he was basically in prison for most of that time, and then he moved to France in 2012. She stayed around and kept doing her human rights work, and they had 2 kids. So they were twins. I can't figure out how they had time to make children, but twins. Just one shot, you know. Yeah, you get her done. So she worked as a journalist for several reformist newspapers. She published a book of political essays titled The Reforms, the Strategy, and the Tactics. And in 2003, she joined the Defenders of Human Rights Center, which is DHRC, and it's headed by the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Shirin Ebadi. And then she later became the organization's vice president. So she was first arrested. Remember, this is a story of a woman who keeps going to jail. And does not give up. So she was first arrested in 1998 for her criticisms of the Iranian government, and she spent 1 year in prison. So then 10 years happened, and I don't know what happened, but in April 2010, she was summoned to the Islamic Revolutionary Court for her membership in the DHRC. She was briefly released on a $50,000 bail, like 50,000 US dollars bail, but then rearrested several days later and detained at Evin, E-V-I-N, Evin prison. So her health was declining while she was there. She developed an epilepsy-like disease. And after a month, they ultimately let her go so she could seek medical care.
Oh, man.
It's crazy. So July 2011, this is a story, keeps storying. She was prosecuted again and found guilty of, quote, acting against the national security, membership of the DHRC, and propaganda against the regime, end quote. So in September, she was sentenced to 11 years imprisonment.
Damn, 11 years.
So
she got less time she got more time for political stuff than Linda got for.
Yeah. And she's like,
okay.
From what I gather, she's writing essays. She's writing essays. She's meeting with other like-minded people to gain rights for women, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And thus she's being jailed? All right.
Yeah.
Fucking men. All right. So how do I really feel? I don't know. She stated that she learned of the verdict only through her lawyers and had been given, quote, she says, given an unprecedented 23-page judgment issued by the court in which they repeatedly likened my human rights activities to attempts to topple the regime, end quote. So she was just looking for some rights. In March 2012, the sentence was upheld by an appeals court, but it was reduced to 6 years. And that's about what Linda got, right?
Yeah, but this woman is just trying to get basic human rights for women.
Yes.
And Linda over there scamming.
That's true. So like a little different. So on April 26th, 2012, she was arrested to begin her sentence. Now, this sentence was protested by the British Foreign Office, which called it, quote, another sad example of the Iranian authorities' attempts to silence brave human rights defenders, end quote. Amnesty International designated her a prisoner of conscience and called for her immediate release. Reporters Without Borders issued an appeal on her behalf on the 9th anniversary of photographer Zara Kazemi's death in Evin prison, which stating that she was a prisoner whose life was in particular danger. So it's coming out that prison not so safe, right?
Yeah, especially I would imagine in a place that already will put you in prison for just writing essays and speaking up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can't imagine that the prisons are that safe.
So July 2012, an international group of lawmakers called for her release, including like a whole bunch of white men from all over the place. I'm not going to go into detail, but good on them. Good on them. They did the right thing.
Yep.
So on July 31st, 2012, she was released from prison. So that's good. Enough pressure, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not done, though. Okay. Cuckoo. October 31st, 2014, she made a speech at the gravesite of Sattar Beheshti, saying, quote, how is it that the parliament members are suggesting a plan for the promotion and virtue... What is this? Let me try that again. Suggesting a plan for the promotion of virtue and prevention of vice, but nobody spoke up 2 years ago when an innocent human being by the name of Sattar Beheshti. What am I doing? I can read. I can't read. Sattar Beheshti. Words are hard.
USA.
Okay. Blah, 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 da, la, la. Okay. So essentially, I'm going to stop quoting. Basically, like, how do you say you're fighting for human rights when he died under torture? Essentially, is what she's saying, right?
Right.
Her speech went viral pretty quickly through social media networks, resulting, surprise, in the court, in the prison summoning her. So the Evin prison court, I guess the prison has a court? I don't know.
I guess so. Wow.
And they said to turn herself in just like for charges. She didn't know what. Just do it. Just do because we said so. Okay.
Basically, here's a form. We'll fill it out later.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so
this is terrifying.
So scary. And she doesn't stop. I love So on May 5th, 2015, she was once again arrested on the basis of new charges. So this year, this time they're trying to sentence her to 10 years imprisonment for, quote, founding an illegal group, end quote, in reference to basically to it's a campaign to abolish the death penalty. 5 years of that for, quote, assembly and collusion against national security, and 1 year for, quote, propaganda against the system, end quote. For her interviews with international media and her March 2014 meeting with the EU's then High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Catherine Ashton. So, I mean, this is a lot of information. There's a lot of she did this, she did that, but she basically gets imprisoned, comes out, fights for the rights in any way she deems necessary and important, and all of it seems right to me, and then gets thrown back in prison.
Yeah. It's like, shut up, woman, and be quiet.
Yeah. And she's like, no, I won't shut up.
Yeah.
In 2019, in January, she began a hunger strike. So I think she'd been in prison for about 5 years at that point.
God.
With the detained British Iranian citizen Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe in Evin prison to protest being denied access to medical care. In July 2020, remember July 2020? She showed signs of COVID. Which she apparently did recover from. Very, very lucky. By August. And then October 2020, she was released from prison. March 2021, she is not done. She wrote the foreword to the Iran Human Rights Annual Report on the death penalty in Iran. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I like this part. I'm going to read this part. Ready?
Okay.
These people have been sentenced to death after being held in solitary confinement and subjected to horrific psychological and mental torture. That is why I do not consider the judicial process to be fair or just. I see keeping defendants in solitary confinement, forcing them to make untrue and false confessions that are used as the key evidence in issuing these statements. So she does not play. She saw...
This is...
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
It's crazy that somebody can be that brave in this day and time.
I mean...
And also that someone needs to be that brave just by speaking.
Just by speaking. I mean, we got 99 problems, but not being able to speak ain't one. In this country, it's not perfect, but it does make you kind of realize,
for now,
for now,
these motherfuckers getting charged. That could easily change.
Don't forget to vote. Yeah,
that's right. Vote them out.
Vote them out. Watch. P.S. Total side note: watching the House do what it's doing these days is really. I mean, it's kind of funny.
But you know what? I love it because it's a self-inflicted wound.
I know, right? Why did I stab my leg and I'm still bleeding? Well, I don't know why you stabbed your leg in the first place, dude. Yep.
It's like, your fault. You won't help me. Your fault, Democrats. You won't help us out of this.
Yes, it's the Democrats' fault. That makes perfect sense. Or, listen, vote for a Democrat to be speaker. You can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's right there.
Yeah. Just hanging out, doing nothing. All right. So in May 2021, Lord in Heaven, here we go. Branch 1188 of Criminal Court 2 in Tehran sentenced her to 2.5 years in prison, 80 lashes. Okay, let's go back hundreds of thousands of years. And 2 separate fines for charges, including, quote, spreading propaganda against the system. So 4 months later, she received a summons to begin the sentence, and she didn't respond. She was like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Also, 80 lashes. Let's think about that. 80.
80 lashes.
3 is too many, but 80.
These motherfuckers. So they found her on November 16th. She was attending a memorial of someone who had been killed by security forces during a protest in 2019. So, where am I? Words on a page. So her arrest was condemned as arbitrary by Amnesty International and the International Federation for Human Rights. I think they did not arrest her. So December 2022, and listen, I don't have a lot of access to a lot of information. Once again, please let us know if you know more. So 2022, during the Mahsa Amini protests, the BBC published a report that she had written detailing the sexual and physical abuse of detained women. In January 2023, she gave a report from prison. I lied. She went to prison. I didn't even read that when I prepped it. Like, I looked at it and I couldn't take it in. And I think I do this sometimes when I don't want something to be true. And I'm reading it. I'm like, nah, she didn't go to prison. Yeah, fucking A. Detailing the condition of women in that prison. She included a list of 58 prisoners and the interrogation process and tortures they have gone through. 57 of these women have spent 8,350 days in total under solitary confinement. 56 of these women are sentenced to 3,300 months in total. Quote, I declare once more that solitary confinement is a cruel and inhumane punishment. I will not rest until it is abolished. She has been an outspoken critic of solitary confinement, calling it, quote, white torture, in her 2022 book of the same name. In September 2023, she supported Mehdi Yahrahi after his arrest for the protest. He wrote a protest song and he got arrested. So that's what we know of
basically,
her. Yeah.
Her career comes down to or her legacy comes down to standing up for human rights and what's right in general, but also like not being quiet when they're like, woman, let men speak, shut up. She's like, men are, it's amazing how triggered they get, some men, just from a woman speaking.
Because that's like, she hasn't even done... Listen, we've done women
she
that
hasn't taken up arms,
throw bombs at buildings and shit. Like she's writing
or push
essays,
people,
right?
Yeah,
she's or taking a hat pin.
It's unreasonable.
Doing what they got to do, you know.
Listen, the hat pin girls are ladies are.
Listen, they got it. They did what they had to do, no doubt. Let me be clear on where
that's
I stand.
My internal hero, Shiro. Hat pin. Sometimes you just want to take a hat pin and stab a motherfucker in his eye.
You know.
And just because she's just speaking, like talking, she dares speak out of term when she's not spoken to. Like, it's just like, what is this? Like the 1400? What is going on?
This feels very like 1400s. Lashes? Like, what the fuck?
But I mean, listen. Being here in the U.S., we're watching it in real time. These motherfuckers want to go back to that. And some of the women don't realize that's what they're trying to go back to.
I can't figure out how they don't see that.
They think they could just go a little back. Well, they think that, abortion. But it's like, no, abortion, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They want women to go back.
It's a control
to where they can't
mechanism.
Even get it.
That's all it is.
They want to go back to where women can't open up a bank account on their own. Mm-hmm. They need a man to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that frustrates me about the whole abortion argument is you don't have to get an abortion. Go to your church, preach against it all day. That's totally fine. I can't stop you because we have freedom of religion, freedom of thought, freedom, of some action.
Miriam.
Yeah. Yes, Lavetta?
That's very lovely what you're saying, and that makes sense, and that's the high road, but I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
Some of these motherfuckers should have been aborted. I'm just... Listen, some of these motherfuckers shouldn't have made it out the womb.
Oh my God.
I can think of several that I know in real life. Okay. So that's why I'm pro-choice, because some of these motherfuckers should have been cut off at the conception. Listen.
So you have options for high roads or low roads. We give options.
Listen, that is my that is my sci-fi time travel movie.
Oh, God.
Go back and be like, yeah, not you. They won't be making that Pixar movie, huh? Shoot.
I don't know.
Some of these motherfuckers, like, and also it's just like, so it's not only like this with the case of her, and I'm sorry, say her name once more.
I am
for me.
so afraid that I'm saying it wrong, but I think.
But we have to say her name. Like,
I know.
You know.
I think it's not Narges Mohammadi?
Narges Mohammadi.
Or Narges Mohammadi. It's funny. Persian is not unsimilar to Hebrew, so I feel like I should be able to pull this off. But I don't want to mess it up, you know?
Yeah, I know. We want to be respectful. But she is basically, she's asking for not even the bare minimum, bare minimum. But it's not about that. It's about control.
It's about control.
Over not only yourself, but other people.
I think she's
in perpetuity.
One of the reasons why I chose her is like, we try to call things out. And I think, you know, in this country right now, we absolutely can. But I feel like she is in a time and a place where even the least you could do, write an essay, gets her arrested in a cruel prison.
In a cruel prison where she's subjected to sexual abuse, mental
torture.
abuse. And it's just like torture. And it's just like, these motherfuckers can't even, and I just think about those people during the pandemic who are like, I can't wear a mask because it's uncomfortable. This woman's going to jail for writing an essay. Okay?
Yeah.
She was like, I'm going to do that time. I'm going to do that time.
And she gets out of jail.
They're giving her 80 lashes.
I mean, I'll be honest. I go to jail once for a day and I will never do it again. You know,
girl, I'm not made for it.
No.
I'm a scaredy cat.
Yep. Same.
I mean, I don't want to have to be looking over my shoulder and become a cold-blooded killer, because I will to survive, but I don't think I'll survive. I don't think I'll get to that point. I think I will crumble because I'm a wuss.
Yep, same.
But I know. This is why I don't do criminal things. I just think about them in my head, like stabbing somebody with a hat pin who is trying to rape you or molest you, and just some stranger, like, you know, it's just, you know, but wow, that's the kind of bravery I don't even think most people have.
I think most people don't. And I'm not even knocking most people. Again, you and I would not do this because, we don't I don't have that constitution.
I would crumble. I would just shut up. Yeah, honestly, as much as I love to talk, I would just be like, oh, I guess I would shut up. But she's like, nope. Yeah. Nope. So, she's brave. Good on her. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, what a way to end the season, huh?
I was just going to say. That's a doozy.
One's a scammer and one's a hero, right?
Right.
It's just like, I mean, but women are all kinds of things. That's why we do this show.
Yes.
You know, and she's notorious for doing, again, something heroic, right?
Right. Exactly.
And Linda is notorious for doing something that's scammy, but also allegedly murdering and kidnapping kids. Okay.
Definitely alleged.
But that's not important.
No.
Again, ignore the murder and kidnapping.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
This welfare fraud. Okay.
Who? Yeah. I don't even.
Wow.
It's crazy.
America, baby. America.
Yeah, for real.
With that wraps it up for the latest episode of Notorious Women podcast. Guys, thank you so much for joining us every week. We really, really appreciate the downloads, the listens, the sharing. Hopefully you're sharing. Again, remember to copy the link and
please.
Send it to someone. Copy it. Also, you can give us a 5-star review in the Apple Store. That helps people find us. And you can just tell your friends about us. You can also support us on Patreon. We love the money, you know, because I don't have Linda's scamming ability.
I don't either.
I just have to come straight forward and
Yeah.
just ask you. But if you want to do that, if you want to support us financially, you can go to patreon.com/notoriouswomen, and that's patreon.com/notoriouswomen. And Miriam, where else can they find and support the show?
Well, we all have our Instagram page. So fun. It's Notorious Women Podcast. Thanks, I'm trying. And we also have a TikTok page. Okay.
Yes. New.
Yeah.
We're fairly newish, right? Newish.
We just started putting things on it, but we've had the, if we're honest about the situation. You can also email us at notoriouswmpod@gmail.com. You can DM us on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
I'll check that.
Absolutely.
And that is it.
But most importantly, come back here next week.
Yeah, do that.
Do that. Or we may take a week off between this episode and the next episode.
So
are we going to take one off?
We are taking one off, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we will see you for season 4.
Okay.
Can you believe this?
Yes.
Season 4. We fancy.
And season 4 is going to start off
fancy.
like a little bit special. A little bit special.
Yes.
So come on back.
We got a great surprise for you guys. Yes, come on back. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.